Hello all, and good morrow to you. I am Eric, and I am doing this video as a prelude to a series I am going to be starting and now posting to both YouTube and the White Wolf page over on Yonder Facebooks. A while ago, I started doing a series of videos like this as well with YouTube Live. And I apologize if I mumble a bit or stutter. This is all very unscripted, very spur of the moment, but I thought I finally need to start doing this because if I don't, I just know I'm going to forget about it right now. Either way, several months back, right after New Year's, I and several friends decided to start playing a game of Dark Ages Vampire, set in the year of 1207 but now it is spanned and hit 1209 at this point. It is a semi-accurate historical setting that, well, the players have been are trying to change history quite drastically in the strange favor of the Crusades through Poland, Prussia, the pagan crusade, as it were. Either way, we started this a while back, and I promised myself I'd start the series. So before I jump headlong into this, I think it would be a very good idea to explain to you the intricacies of the world of darkness I have created. I mix and mash a lot of different lores, and much of it is not cohesive with the normal canon whatsoever. It's just a forewarning to any of you purists out there. This game might not be something you would be all too interested in, or you might be just to see how I have kind of destroyed and recreated the lores of several games. Most of the vampire lore stays somewhat the same. But one of the major points I want to point out here before starting is the Cain myth. Now, Dark Ages Vampire, the Cain myth, is very prevalent, but this is a game that takes more precedence on the intricacies of Cainite politics within the pagan lands, as it were. Poland had been highly Christianized at this point, but vampires who have been so deep-seated in their tradition, they don't even use the term Cainite there. They either just call themselves vampires or Velians, the children of Veles, because their whole mythology is that it is not the Christian god who cursed us, it was the god Perun. We were the lost souls that Veles was tried to basically shepherd along to the other side, or he created us as a way of basically the undead shall rise again and help those lost souls to move on. Perun, the god of lightning, who is basically the opposite of Veles in many cases, ended up cursing this new race of vampires in these old myths with the brand of Perun, which is this world's equivalent of the Curse of Cain. The first vampire, I've debated the whole idea behind it. There is no pinnacle first vampire. This is no Enter Yar situation where instead of Cain it was Canarl, instead of Jehovah it was Odin. No. What I more or less do is that every single clan who still clings on to these old pagan beliefs, it more or less seems that they don't have a solidified heresy here. There is a lot of conjecture between them. Some don't even take to the concept that they were the creations or even damned in that case by Perun, but maybe more or less tested by him, or even they eschew the Perun belief altogether because Slavic paganism was a very localized concept in this time period. There was no church, really. It was just tribes worshipping the ways they believed it. So, I dispute a lot of lore here. The Cain myth is still around. I mean, the players are riding with Jurgen von Verden, this child of Hartstadt the Elder, on this crusade. But Also, I have but again, more or less, this is a game that just tries to show take it from an outsider's perspective and coming in and finding all this strange this heresy. We don't like how will players react to this sort of thing, and so far, very strange things have happened. Now, not all of the players, interestingly, are vampires. And when I say that, I don't mean that they're playing ghouls or mortals or just like thralls. I mean we have other supernatural creatures that have joined the party at this point. I have allowed this on a very, very rigid basis. I'm trying to be as free as possible, but there are times where I've had to delve into the lores of these other games. I have to change a lot of rules because I have noticed so many things that are overpowered. While we don't have any werewolves in the party currently, we don't have Guru. I'll get into that in a second. But one of the major things I noticed that I decided to change was if players ever encounter gangrel or werewolves, their feral claws don't do aggravated damage anymore to vampires or to werewolves in that case. They only deal lethal. To other supernatural creatures, such as demons and Prometheans, yes, there is one that might show up in this game. Or mages, for that example. The claws do deal aggravated damage to them. Because as I see it, a vampire's undead flesh should be a little more durable, and a werewolf, they are freaking mounds of horror and rage and anger and slaughter. And on that topic, let me talk about Werewolf for a second. I am not a fan of Werewolf the Apocalypse. I have thrown that lore completely out of my game. There is no worm, there is no Gaia. Well, there sort of is, but she doesn't show up. There is no Weaver. And the werewolf tribes are Blood Talons, Hunters in Darkness, Iron Masters, Bone Shadows and Storm Lords, the Tribeless Ghost Wolves, the Pure, all these different Forsaken tribes. I've translated a lot of Werewolf the Forsaken into my game because I'm a very large fan of that game. I like the lore, and the players have come upon some werewolves that they've actually had diplomatic relations with. Again, showing these concepts from a different perspective. And also, I won't get into any rants on Werewolf the Apocalypse. I know there are many who find it a very fun game, and more power to you, in my opinion. I've tried it in the past. I did not like it. I think it kind of ruins the lore in many cases, for vampires specifically. I don't like the worm. Though I've incorporated some elements of Black Spiral Dancers back into the Balehounds, because other than that, though, not much. But next comes Mage the Ascension. Mage has basically stayed the same at this point, though their mages haven't really been involved at all. The only character that is related to them in some ways that has become involved is a sorcerer by the name of who I will get into when I'm doing the storyline. The sorcerer, on the other hand, though, he has come into contact with vampires. He's begun working with them, in a sense, seeing as how he's trying to save his homeland. And he knows the vampires, they want more than... Jurgen... I'll get into politics behind Jurgen later. I think I've been able to represent him quite well in this game, along with many of his allies. Demon the Fallen, has not actually come into play whatsoever. It could be canon. As I see it, demons just come from any culture, blah blah blah, spiritual incarnations, yada yada. I don't use Demon the Fallen, never read the books. I took a look at them once. I just used the rules for demons in Dark Ages 20th Anniversary Edition. I like those rules. What's next? But there is another type of demons that we have had shown up that I have incorporated. And in fact, one of our players is playing one of them, Demon the Descent. Yes, Demon the Descent from Chronicles of Darkness is heavily involved in this game, and I do love that game. I have not played it actually at all. I've read a good deal of the lore, and we've translated him quite well. That was where a little bit of my rigidness came in, because we really had to fix a lot of the problems, including automatic hits on characters with some of his abilities. We fluked it a bit, but I think it works. I'm trying to get away from combat as much as possible, but it does keep coming up at times, mainly due to the player's choice. And also when actual battles in-game that I've written out need to take place, which, sadly, so far there have been several, but I'd like to cut back on the violence for once. I like the politicking, mainly. Other than that, I do also... Wraith the Oblivion basically stays the same. Most of the other World of Darkness lines have stayed the same at this point. But the lore you need to understand behind this is the Baltic Crusade. We are using the book under the Black Cross, but I have decided to cut out the middle portion of the book and write my own portion. And I'm probably going way off history here, so to any history buffs, you might cringe a bit at times because I might be like just talking nonsense. I know, again, we're fluking history, so mainly it's just for the fun factor. One of the other major things, though, about this is I think one of the major points about this, the middle portion is taking place earlier than it should have, from what I understand. I've looked into this a bit. I've done some compare and contrast with timelines. I'm doing this way before it should have. I don't care at this point. I can't stop that. But then again, there's always been contradictions in some of the very earlier editions of Vampire, of course. Specifically, when I was looking into stuff about the Teyavelic Tremere and Quarok, the gangrel who ended up allying with them, there is a lot in there that is confused. Clan novel books that confused it. The role-playing books confused it. Hell, the entire some of the storyline got confused, especially with Jurgen and his supposed death. Hopefully they can circumvent that from happening. But either way, I think I will go over the characters now. So I will start with the characters who began our game. Sadly, 2 of them did have to leave, but 2 people left, and then later on more players began joining in. The first character we have is Arthur Plotze. He is a minor noble, well, not even a noble, he's a minor knight of Clan Bruja from the city of Leipzig in Germany. Minor landowner with some resources. I think he's either 10th or 11th generation. He might be 9th, I forget. I will actually pull up character sheets while I talk about him. He was a Templar knight who was embraced during the sacking of Constantinople by a Cainite by the name of Nepotian the Traitor. He is known as that because he was, as I've written it in, he was pivotal in the destruction of Constantinople, basically pitting people against each other. There are rumors that he might have been involved with the children of Dracan and the Obertas family, but that is unsure of. All that is known is his reasoning for embracing the Templar was more or less, from how I see it, as he needed cannon fodder very quickly. And this Templar and his son, who was fighting alongside of him, they got inside the walls. They were fighting well. So what he ended up doing was he embraced both of them. But when he realized that he had to make a hasty retreat, and the son of Arthur ended up trying to attack Nepotian in a frenzy, and well, Nepotian cut him down very quickly. After that, Arthur immediately frenzied, tried to attack his sire, and ended up failing. He has been seeking Nepotian ever since, and He has come to the city of Magdeburg under the auspices of an invitation by Jürgen von Verden for a very large feast and a discussion of a possible new crusade that will be beginning. He is on the road of chivalry. He's a paladin. He is very religious in many aspects of his day-to-day workings, and in many cases has found the Canaanite world to be rife with corruption and horror, but he sees he's more akin to a Ventru in his sense of honor, as I would put it. He finds those who have held power, who have kept the peace. Those are people who you should respect, and by doing so, he has not actually angered his clan as a whole. He does have quite an infamous sire, however. Thankfully, he's been able to circumvent the fact that he was embraced by the bastard. But at the same time, if he ran into the wrong people, of course, there would be very quick problems. He also travels with a young squire by the name of Alistair, his retainer, who is not Gould. In fact, Alistair is his other son from before his embrace, his actual son. Alistair does not know that Arthur is his father because the last time they saw each other, Alistair was a very young boy at the time. And so he's been keeping his identity a secret, but specifically sought him out and under the auspices of a knight made him his squire. They have traveled to Magdeburg, both, and it's Alistair is, well, I'll get into him later on. The next character we have, well, more or less a duo, one of them played by me as an NPC, is Fish and Bernhard the Bare-Blooded. Fish is probably the oldest in the coterie at the beginning of the game, at the very least. He is about 50 years of age as a vampire, though he is a Nosferatu stuck in the body of a 12-year-old boy. Fish was the son of a German and French noble who had married as part of a diplomatic alliance between their two households. But unknowingly, his son did not know this, but they were also the pawns of a very powerful Nosferatu from the lands. I do not know if Munich actually was... I will look this up, actually. The lands around what became of Munich, of course. It was Munich at this point. I have no idea. His name, all they call him by, he was known as the Plague of Munich. And, history, origin of the medieval town. Yep, it was around at this point. The city was, so yes, the Plague of Munich. He is a horrid Nosferatu of very ill repute, who ended up siring the boy only because it was vengeance for the two working against him. The Ventru of Munich had actually contacted the family and were basically they were feeding the Ventru information. They said they would be Gould, they would no longer have to live in terror, and what ends up happening, the Plague found out about this. He came to their house in the middle of the night and embraced the boy, and then was going to kill him, basically saying, "For doing this to me, I am going to damn your son to hell for all of eternity." And he proceeded to embrace him, and after that happened, before he could kill him, a giant knight came barreling through the door, swinging a broadsword around his head in this style of motion, aiming for the creature's head. A scuffle ensued, the Plague got away, but the knight took his helmet off and revealed himself as Bernhard the Bare-Blooded. He was an emissary sent by Clan Ventru to the family that night to help get more information from them, but he saved the boy in the process. The mother and father were distraught and horrified by what they had seen, and in an effort to try to help them, Bernhard dominated them to make them forget their son was turned into a vampire. Instead, that he was stolen away by brigands, and they took a 5-month period to search for him, but he was declared dead and murdered in the countryside. Fish was very distraught. He was scared and alone. He couldn't see his family anymore. So Bernhard, in a very chivalrous manner, though he's not on the path of chivalry, he's on humanity, he took the boy in as adoptive child. By doing this, he's trained the boy as both in the ways of religion and in the ways of skullduggery. Fish has acted as a spy and an assassin in many cases, and he's a very promising young fledgling. The next character we have is Norbert Kroll of Clan Cappadocian. Norbert Kroll is the childer of Gervais of Clan Cappadocian, not to be confused with Gervais of Clan Tremere, who will appear in this chronicle. He is the blood brother of Garanal Cappadocius of the Petronhill Monastery in Prague. He was a young Jewish man who was embraced into the clan as a philosopher. He was trying to determine how life and death were connected in that sense, but not in a morbid fashion. He was embraced more as an individual who wants to understand the true workings of humanity. And he was brought in by Gervais because Gervais saw a very strange potential in him and possibly another way of studying death. And he was tutored in the Petronhill Monastery. He is still quite young, but he has a good deal of status and fame already because of his philosophical works on the humanities and on the vampire condition. He is a Jewish man. He is not a firm believer in the old myths of Cain, but at the same time, he's not one to dismiss them as mere myths or children's stories to scare vampires. He truly is and wants to be able to discover all there is to know about our race. And I find he is probably the most peaceful character in our group. He is also an alcoholic. One of his few vices in life was alcoholism, and because of that, he has to, of course, drink the blood of drunks. And it is not a very good. It's not always a good situation, but he takes what he can get. There's then one of the players who sadly had to leave us, Norbert Kroll of Clan Ventru. He was a Nordic German on the path of heaven. The interesting thing about Norbert Kroll was though he was on the path of heaven, he was a very greedy individual, to the point where he would actually take a chance at losing ground on his road of enlightenment to make a quick buck. His player sadly had to leave because of, life situations I won't delve into. He is fine, though, thankfully. It was mainly his classes that were sadly getting in the way. While he was around, though, he was a very fun character. Some bad things happened to him. I'll get into those later. But he was a trader who mainly trekked in weaponry. He was a war profiteer, but he also wanted to spread the word of Christ to the heathens. A very fire and brimstone sort of character. But a quote he once said was something along the lines of, actually I might be able to pull it up for us. I apologize if this, again, I'm sorry if this is unscripted and everything. I'm just spur of the moment here. Where is it? Gold is what makes me strong. You may brood around like a fool, but I can hire someone to do that for me. Now how much must I pay you to leave me alone? He was a very, very rich character. I think he was up at 4 resources as he started our game. He had one Gould retainer that followed him around, a blacksmith who helped him create with his the weapons and arms that he sold to Cainites and humans alike. And I think that it was about it. Oh, there was one more character, a Malkavian pagan, whose sadly his character's name escapes me. I'll try to find it for the first session recap for this. But his character sadly ended up being he had to drop out. I feel bad for him. The player felt as though he wasn't role playing this quite well. I thought he was doing a very good job. His character concept was good, though. He was a barbarian who came from the pagan lands, possibly a Prussian, I think Polish even. He was he wanted vengeance. He hated the Shemise. He wanted to destroy them for what they had done to his lands and his people. They masqueraded as gods. They used this godhood to enact the blood tithes upon his people. They murdered his family. It's all very vengeance oriented for him, like very much similar to Fish and also Arthur in that sense. But he actually had a hatred for the clan as a whole instead of just one singular vampire like the other two did. He only played for about 2 sessions, sadly, but I will cover what his character did for a short time. But either way, I think that is about enough at this point. I will get into the rest of this at a later time. For now, I will leave you. Have a good evening and have a good night.